Welcome to the Leverage Legacy Show from the WELLth Movement. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here, and we're going to take a look at the potentiality of mentoring, mentorship as it links with those who are going through a transition at 55 plus years young. Now, earlier I've done something about appreciating older, or if I was to reframe that title, it would be Convergence of Older. And the next one that I shared with you was around the realization of elder. And I'll put links to those below. So this is like the third in the series to unfold the story of mentor as it links to someone who is going through transition at 55 plus years young. And I'm going to be taking a look at mentor through the lens of 10 words starting with M. And some of them you might go, oh, this is kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I hope you stay with me because I'm actually looking a little bit more at the potentiality that links to the practicality of mentor as it fits into your life. And when you're going through a transition at 55 plus years young, you may be walking up to the door of that transition, and you might have actually knocked on the door. You may have actually cracked the door open a little bit. And what is it that's going to happen on the other side of that door? And that's what I'm attempting to bring to you through this Leverage Legacy programs, because it's actually unpacking what legacy means, which is about the useful what's that you gift others so that they can learn something from your lived experience. And those useful what's are time, effort, and money. Leverage is this consideration of love and rage, this notion of how to evolve a way of life, but at the same time, there are opportunities or times when rage may come to you, the little bit more of the hindrance emotions. And there's also the notion of lover and age, and how might you be your own lover or find family and friends who are involved with you as a lover of all things that are wonderful in our lives, our extraordinary lives, and over time. Because at 55 years young, I know that when I sort of came to that point in my life, and I'm well past that now, and I was looking at this 60 years young door, 65 years young door, and I was 55, I had no sense of what that was about. Years ago, I had done some work when there was the big push for boomers going through something called retirement. And I'm not quite sure that that word is really for those who are 55 plus and moving forward. It's still there. I understand that, but I think other words are starting to replace it, like transition into your next 50, transition into your third act, transition into your second 50. There's other ways in which it's being shared with you. So to unpack it, it's really important to understand that in this transition that you have, there may be many reasons for it happening and the way that it's happening for you. But let's pick up on that word way, because when you're an older, you're moving into this convergence of older, a way presents itself. Now, you may have thought it through. Sometimes it may come through from a synchronicity or a spontaneity point of view that leads you into this world of the realization of elder. And what it does is it brings a causeway to you. So when you embrace elder, so that when you understand this notion of older elder and you get to this sense of mentor and mentoring, it's like you're being given a key to this doorway that you can walk through that has an archway of being an educator, and mentor is one of those approaches. There's actually 10, and I will be shooting an upcoming video on that, just to place mentoring inside it. Over in the international mentoring community, with my business associate, we did shoot a video about coaching and mentoring, and I'll put a link below for that one. But what I'm attempting to get at is that mentoring is certainly one of the better ways in which to educate others because of your potentiality, right? You have this skill set, knowledge, talents, gifts, whatever words you'd like to use, that you've accumulated over the years. And just as a personal note here, I jokingly said, oh, I think I went and I looked and I did what, 34 careers so far. And I'm probably going to be adding some more to it. And those careers that I'm talking about is where I was doing the work I was doing and doing it in a professional way, and learning from that, continuing to move forward, and being of assistance, being of service for the world, with the planet, and from the whole. And in that, I learned all about these educating approaches. I did that through my doctoral studies and wrote a book about it. And I've been doing videos about it. And as I said, I'll do a new one. So when I came to look at this older, elder mentor stories, sort of the leading into legacy, and it's the sense of the way, the causeway. Maybe another way of saying it's the way finding, finding the way that you want to move forward is giving you this base platform, something to stand on. And that's why I wanted to look at this notion of mentoring today, to just explain it through these 10 M words, so that you might have a little bit better understanding of what mentoring is about and how it will be of value to you as an educating approach. That I also want to give as a sidebar here, I did mention coaching. There are other educating approaches that might actually fit your potentiality better. I don't know that. That's something that you'll be able to decide on your own. I'm giving you a sense of mentoring is near and dear to my heart. Okay, bias there. But I also believe it's one of the better ways in which to bring the sense of what you know and can do. It's sort of like creating your portfolio of knowledge, skills, and attitude that you can use to be in service. And from that perspective, these 10 M's that I'm going to go through is to, in a sense, leverage that potentiality that you have to be in service, to then find that way in which to leave the legacy you intend to live. So let's get started with them. The first one is MAPP, M-A-P-P. So it's a capitalized MAPP, slightly different than the notion of map that we associate with a diagram of the territory that you can use to walk through, or the map of the city streets, or the map that is you can use to float down a river or climb a mountain. This map is more about, you're going to map it, have a sense of the territory, so that you can agree, M and A, agree to plan, the first P. So map to agree, agree to plan, plan to, and then what you can do is fit in other P related words that you might find of interest. Now, when I'm working with someone who may be looking at using mentoring as a business, we might look at it from the sense of performance and pricing, and using P's in that sense. But also mentoring is really great from a map to agree, agree to plan, plan to prepare, this notion of a preparation approach for life and where you want to go with that. And that links to the different elements of legacy that you want to leverage. but it also might lead to the prevention mindset, preparation approach, prevention mindset, ways in which to take care of yourself so that you're living this extraordinary life that's available to you, but also alert to what's happening. And sometimes the sense of aging might catch up to you, fatigue, and some of the conversations I'm having with others as I build out the content for a book and preparing a course that I will be offering, I'm learning really wonderful insights about this notion of what starts to take place as you move into your 55 plus years young lifestyle. And so it's great. And therefore, that map that you're creating is a way in which to bring this whole story to you. You can look at it from a whole and be able to figure out, okay, what comes next? And that's the next word is manage. And manage here is to manage the systems, all right, for your involvement with others, and manage the system for yourself. So there's your own life system, but the systems of relationships that you're going to have with others, the relationships that you might have if you go into volunteering or into becoming an employee or to become an entrepreneur or an executive. There are ways in which this legacy unfolds, and therefore you're managing the systems that are associated with that. And as a bit of a sidebar on that, system actually means save yourself time, effort, and money as you make it safer. If you remember earlier, I talked about this notion of time, effort, and money from a legacy point of view, and they are gifts. And when you give those gifts, how are you doing it so that it's safer for you and safer for those who are going to receive those gifts? So, this notion of managing these systems is really important as it unfolds for you. The next one I'd like to take a look at is the word measure. I'm not getting into the sense of measuring your performance or anything like that, but it's really about measuring, um, you could call it life satisfaction, the notion of the living importance, what's satisfying and important to you, and what are the measures you associate with that. There's four base ones that I work with. Is one of them is around my health and wellness, the notion of the measures I associate with that. Another one is around my leisure recreation, the kind of activities I get involved with, and one of them being walking. And this morning I was actually out on my walk, and it was sort of like the dog said to me is, let's keep going. And well, okay. And I actually extended the walk, and it was actually one of the most beautiful walks that I've had. And I attribute it to the dog sort of whispering to me, and let's go a little bit more, a little bit more. And so that measure that I had of that sense of enjoyment that came to me was, it was really beautiful. So those are two. So first one is around health and wellness, second one around leisure and recreation. The third one is around this work, employee, executive, entrepreneur. You may want to continue on. That could take into consideration starting your own business or working with someone else's business or getting involved with the movement from uh, a charitable perspective. So there's many ways in which to look at this sense of work. And I'm going to share with you David White, who's a poet. And I would encourage you to look him up. The book, the poetry book, was Crossing the Unknown Sea, I think it was. And in there, he mentioned about work. And I've always enjoyed this definition of work. And I think you'll see how it pertains to what I've just mentioned here. Work is about the discovering and shaping a place where the self meets the world. And therefore, the work that you take up in your 55 plus year life cycle, lifestyle, this transition will give you an opportunity to discover and shape you in being for the world, with the planet, and from the whole. And for me, that's sort of there's newness, there's excitement, there's curiosity that's associated with that, and I think it's wonderful to have that available to you from this sense of measure and the sense of manage and map mentoring and how you would bring that in. Now, I gave you three. The fourth one of the markers of measure that I would give is around the sense of volunteering, the altruism, the philanthropy, and this notion of being in service. And how might you, with what you have as your resources of time, effort, and money, how might you be of service to others? One of the areas that I've picked up in my life was that I'm a philanthropist for Children in Trees programs. And a lot of that had to do with experiences that I've had through my travels and working with children, working with trees. I've had situations where I've been involved with war, and to be able to, how can I give back to the kids who don't have trees around them as they go to school, or there are trees that have been taken away because of the war and the burning of the trees that are closest, because it's the safest place to go get the trees. But now the forests are dwindled. And so this notion of the altruism, the volunteerism, the philanthropy is the fourth of the measures. Now, I could go into a lot of others, and there's life scale assessments that you can dig into, but I'm hoping that gives you a bit of a sense of the measure component. The next one I want to take a look at as monitor. Now, what I'm suggesting here is, yes, there are the measures that I've just given, but monitor is sort of sitting back a little bit more, where measure might be, I'm going to reflect in what's going on. Monitor for me is to reflect in. Monitor for me means to reflect on. So again, just to clear that up, measure to reflect in while you're in it. Monitor is to reflect on it. And this is where, excuse me, this is where journaling and using workbooks and planners and thinking ahead and exploring, being curious, monitoring, reflecting on what's happening, and finding out where the best practices of what you've done can become wise practices. The standards that you're using can become inspired standards for you about how you unfold this extraordinary life using mentoring and linking it to the legacy that you want to leave by living it. I think there's something that's really, really wonderful and wonderful about that. So the notion of monitoring and taking a bit of a step back and reflecting on what's taking place. The next one I wanted to go over, and they sort of go hand in hand, but they are two different ones. The notion of maximize and minimize. There is an acquaintance of mine, unfortunately, he's not walking the earth. He always talked, less is better. And we always had great conversations about that. And it was sort of ways in which to think about the notion of the minimize. But let me just take this maximize one, is that sometimes what we do is we want to add and multiply and bring more. There's a story of more, and how to maximize. And then there's the minimize, subtract, and divide to make a little smaller. I've gone through both of those in my life. I've accumulated a lot, and then I went into how do I get rid of it. So just a brief story here is about 10 years ago, I said that I was going to adopt the gray digital nomad lifestyle. And what I did was I sold my home and gave everything I owned away. I simplified, I subtracted, I divided, I did whatever I could. And I slowly did that even through some of the storage units that I had. But eventually I got it down so that I have with me 10 Rubbermaid boxes that I have around me. And I have another 9 that are in a safekeeping place for me. But I'm actually going to get a hold of them and I'm going to do something with those 9. So I've only got the 10. So you can sort of see how I brought this more story because I had thousands of books, canoes, vehicles, um, a 3-bedroom house, and there was just me. There, I had all this more, and then I went through this life shift as I moved through my 55s into my 60s, and now I'm in my late 60s. I looked at this notion of maximize and minimize. And I encourage you to do something similar is to just take stock of what it is that you have. What is it that you need? What is it you want? And just really pay attention to that and see what you want to do with it. And mentoring is a way in which to bring that story to you because as you build your portfolio, you get a sense of all of the knowledge, skills, and attitude that you have. But what of that would you like to share with others? Because you don't necessarily want to do it all, but what would be the story of maximize, minimize that you would want to share with another, right? Because mentoring is about a two-way trusted relationship that you have with another person so that you can both learn personally and professionally if that's the status that you're in because it happens through an arrangement that sort of has the flavor of an alliance. You're both getting something out of it. It's mutual in terms of it's playing out for you, and therefore, what do you want to share? What is it that you think that I think I won't go into that. I'll just something I'll package up. Maybe I'll do later, or hey, that was a really great part of my life. And so just working through this maximize, minimize is something that would be fun for you. Now, the next thing that I would have you look at is mesmerize, and linked to that would be magnetize. Now, what do I mean by those? So, from a mentoring point of view, mesmerize is the stories that you share are ways in which to involve and evolve your the mentee that you're going to be interacting with. So those you're going to be in service could be family, friends, community. So this notion of mesmerize of all of what it is that you have um, done, where you've been, the thoughts that you have, if you frame them up in the sense of a project and stories and contributions, then do so so that what it does is it involves others and it gives them an opportunity to evolve their lives. And that's what you mean about mesmerize, be able to share it in such a way that people go, oh, okay, that's great. That's wonderful. And it could be from the learnings, the people use words like failure, the mistakes, the things that you've learned from, and those things that you appreciate, those successes that you have, and being able to bring that together in terms of story sharing, storytelling. The magnetize is that it's wonderful to think about who else outside of your family and friends, thus into the community, who could benefit from what it is that you have learned. You're older, elder, now mentor. How might you magnetize some others into your circle of influence so that they might learn from you and to expand what's available to you? And if you go into the elder story, you'll see where I shared about expand and extend in that video. And again, the links for the older and elder videos will will be below. But it's to, in a sense, magnetize. Now, what the great thing here is that a magnet has a north-south. And if you bring a north end of another magnet, they'll sort of want to push apart. Why I'm mentioning this is don't always go for those who see the world similar to you. I've had some really wonderful conversations with people when we may have at beginning have had sort of the sense of clashing as a north-north kind of idea or south-south kind of idea of a magnets. But when we sort of said, okay, let's look at these things a little differently, it opened up more possibilities. And we actually found that while I may have a north view, you have a south view, we can bring them together and have a really wonderful conversation. And maybe my south view and your north view, we could bring those together. And it just opens up more opportunities. And I have found it to be really wonderful when I think of magnetizing other perspectives towards me and not thinking about how it might be competition, but how we're connected, how we collaborate with one another. And mentoring is such a wonderful way in which to give you that opportunity because there are times when you're interacting with your mentee, you're not going to see eye to eye. You're not going to see ear to ear. You're not going to hear ear to ear. And things need to be dialogued about and open it up. And for me, that has been a wonderful way in which to live is to be able to capture and get a sense of those different perspectives that are available to me. A lot of that came about because of travel, but a lot of that has now come through work. And one of the things is I'm finding even through using Zoom meetings and live streams and Skypes and all that, there are ways in which to access the different perspectives and bring them in. The next thing I'd like to just share a little bit about is the sense of maintenance. Now, it may be a little boring kind of topic, but in a sense, it actually is so important. Is how do you maintain this mentoring connections that you have? Because sometimes mentoring can be for a long time, as it can be for a short time. It, it tends to have a sense of maturity over time that mentoring becomes available for you and with others. And how might you maintain that? How do you take care of that? How do you nurture it? Another word that sort of extends to how do you sustain the mentoring that you're doing and the mentoring that you're receiving? And that actually brings up a good point. I think it's time to mention that one. Do you have a mentor yourself? I know I have mentors and still those that I can have conversations with to explore topics, and they have a sense of another way of looking at it. It sort of links to that magnetize that I just shared. But I have mentors, and uh, I would encourage you to not think as well, I've got knowledge, skills, attitude, I'll become a mentor. Where's your mentee? How can you be a mentee? Think about it. Give it a whirl. See what happens for you. Because even in my own life, there are times where in my career, this transition I've done, self care has been. I haven't always taken care of myself, so I reach out and talk to people who can help me with my self care. I know one of the areas that for years and years to come will be around the notion of some of the broken personal professional relationships I've had and the learning that I need to pull from those so that I can make those relationships whole again, or at least get to the point where I can get into maintenance with it, or even I just have to treat them as a memory and say, I got what I got, I did what I could do, and I'm not going to get into the worry of it anymore. Is just forgive and I'm, in a sense, forget some of it. That's something I have to do, and maybe it's something you have to do. And those of us who have been, fully in our careers, given to our careers, or still giving to our careers, sometimes you just have to look and see if there are any of those personal broken professional relationships in your life, and what might you be able to do to be able to look at this maintenance of it. And again, I just leave that with you from a thinking and feeling perspective. So the 10th M that I wanted to share with you is the sense of minding. And a lot of people will use words mindful, mindless. I I'm not a great fan of this mindful, mindless. It's sort of like careful, careless. The use of full and less, um, because there's something in the middle. There's minding, and then there's caring. Yeah, these are the actions that you take in being, and being fully human, and being natural. And the full and ness use of mind is sort of like mindful is when I'm in a sense I'm thinking about you more than about me. Mindless is when I'm thinking more about myself and less about you. And I believe that, as I attempted to get at this magnetize and maintenance, these words about and mentoring, is finding a way to be minding, so that yes, I can be for myself and I can be with others. And how do I do that? Why do I do that? Where do I do that? In such a way as that I can live this extraordinary life that I'm looking at, to be able to leave this legacy that I intend to live. So this notion of minding, again, it starts to bring all of these elements together, because you are starting to find this sense of presence, and the gratitude that you have for this presence, the inspiration, enthusiasm, the certainty that you can bring into it. And that's why I believe the potentiality of mentoring and mentorship is a way in which to bring this being minding to yourself and with others that you're interacting with. And when you bring these 10 M related words together in this full full perspective of mentoring, this potentiality of mentoring, then it's like the key to this doorway of legacy. Because if you bring your sense of, okay, my convergence of older, my appreciation of older, and what does it mean, into the sense of the realization of elder, and what the causeway of elder can do, the transitions that stories that elder brings, the transition systems that you can get into. And one of them can be mentoring, and it's a great place to start, of the 10 educating approaches that are available to you, is that it this mentoring gives you that platform, something to stand on as you leave this legacy you intend to live. So I'm hoping today that I've given you some more insights into mentoring using these 10 M's. But if you'd like to learn more about becoming a certified mentor, there's the internationalmentoringcommunity.com. I'll put a link below. It's where you can explore and discover the world of mentoring and certification. There is the notion that there is more available through WELLth Movement in terms of programming, and it's the links are below. But really, a call to action that I have for you is that I really would love to expand the channel of WELLth Movement here, and to get these videos from Leverage Legacy out there. So I'd ask if you would subscribe, and if you're called to, share this video. so that the more can hear about it. And with that, if there's anything I can be of assistance, you can use the comments section. If there's something you want to add, alter, delete about what I presented, I'd love to hear from you. And with that, again, the potentiality of mentoring is like the key to the legacy doorway, that archway with that swinging door called legacy, that when you open it up, mentoring is the key that helps you to open it up. So with that, I wish you the best and take care.